Each of our main characters, Charlie Corker and Conrad Hensley, are facing trials, though one is more obviously a trial than the other. Charlie's trial is very real, in the sense that he's being forced, due to his past mistakes, to choose between two or more very prominent human goods. The mayor's plan puts Charlie in a situation where he could save himself financially by doing what, in Charlie's judgment, is betraying his friends and his way of life. Everyone can understand this problem. Conrad's trial is different. As we see, he has been reading Stoic philosophy in prison, and it speaks to his situation and his character. He is a Stoic, or is becoming one. He goes to the pod time and notices that Pocahontas, one of the older inmates, has been raped by one of the gang leaders in the prison. None of the other people in prison do anything to come to the aid of Pocahontas. No one stands up to Ratto, the leader of the prison gang. That is the trial that Conrad faces. Should he help Pocahontas? Should he confront Ratto? Are either of these consistent with Stoicism? It is an odd kind of trial, having much to do with the nature of Stoicism, so let us discuss Stoicism as a way of seeing the trial as Conrad sees it. What is Stoicism? Stoicism, as Conrad understands it, is a philosophy of inner freedom, of confidence learned by living as if you were a prisoner and had to depend on yourself alone for your happiness. Individual happiness, according to Stoicism, is independent of wealth, reputation, health, other human beings, sex, marriage. Happiness must be completely based on the internal disposition of the individual. One would not need others. One would not necessarily care for others. The Stoic doesn't even care if he is going to go on living, considering the human body a vessel with but an ounce of blood. One gets this sense of Stoicism from Conrad's reading of it on pages 408 through 411 and pages 443 and following, where the trial takes place. This philosophy speaks to Conrad because it explains his unwillingness to compromise and accept a plea bargain for a crime he didn't commit. He tried to chalk his resistance up to integrity or to some vague existence of his soul. His wife ridiculed him for this and told him to consider what effects his imprisonment was having on his kids or his family or his reputation. He tried to respond that he wouldn't sell out his soul and that his kids would be proud of him for standing up for what is right. Jill, his wife, is unconvinced. Stoicism provides a philosophical explanation for Conrad's unwillingness to compromise. He cares about virtue and the right. And the external things are not going to have a hold on him. He can be self-sufficient and happy, even in prison, or perhaps especially in prison, because prison is a reality for all mortals, and prison brings that reality to life. This is when Conrad notices the dilemma of Pocahontas, and he asks, in the spirit of the late 1990s evangelical Christian, what would Epictetus do, as opposed to what would Jesus do? Epictetus being a prominent Stoic philosopher from the book he has received. Pocahontas was friendless and would soon be a victim. Conrad wonders about his duty toward this sad, friendless soul, if worse came to worse, page 445. Conrad searches his book of Stoic philosophy for an answer, and he seems to find one. He does not have a duty toward Pocahontas. Pocahontas's misfortune is his own misfortune. It is his own fault. Prove yourself affectionate, writes Epictetus, but see that you observe this rule. If this affection of yours, or whatever you call it, is going to make you a miserable slave, it is not good for you to be affectionate. We are bound in every kind of excuse for people with degenerate spirits. With some of us it is a child, with others our mother or our brothers. We ought not to let anyone make us miserable, but let everyone make us happy. His duty seemed to be to maintain his own self-sufficiency and not let the misery of others affect his happiness and his well-ordered soul. This is a completely understandable approach. We cannot be slaves of external things, however defined. We must not fear death, for that makes us cowardly. We must not fear reputation, for that makes us slaves to fashion. We must not be concerned with wealth above all, because that makes us slaves to the means of acquiring it. Our soul, our character, our virtue, that is essential to happiness. What happens after Pocahontas is raped? Two things that Conrad cannot explain happen. First, he gets up from his metal stool and helps the poor fellow, impelled by something he could no longer reason with, not even with the help of Epictetus, page 450. A nurse and deputies come and help the poor man at Conrad's behest. The nurse woman is ridiculed by the prisoners as maggot. They take Pocahontas away. As they are doing so, a second inexplicable thing happens. Before the nurse maggot left, she turned and gave Conrad a look. It wasn't exactly a smile, but it was a look of warmth. He wanted to embrace her. He couldn't even bring himself to think about it, and precisely why he wanted to hold this woman, he couldn't have explained in 1,000 years. Page 452. Each of these feelings have to do with nursing, with caring for another person, either out of a sense of duty or out of a belief that that is part of what a well-ordered soul is. Where does this desire, this nursing, fit into Stoicism? Conrad seems to know that it is not Stoical thought. The first act of this Stoic is a rejection of the philosophy Epictetus has concerning happiness, depending on indifference to the misery of others. Conrad summons the courage to save the life of Pocahontas. The first act of this born-again Stoic is a rather Christian act of charity. This seems to be a correction of the Stoic philosophy, which assumes that human life is more self-sufficient than it really is. Let me sum up this act then. Stoicism is a philosophy of inner freedom, and there is something true, beautiful, and good about this philosophy. It saves us from enslavements external and base. Through the action of the novel, we will see that Conrad's Stoic philosophy of inner freedom is one of the things that America generally is missing. All ambition is channeled in specifically social ways toward financial wealth, political status, social standing, and so on. Stoicism is not America's philosophy, but it is an important human philosophy. Yet Stoicism exaggerates the extent to which human beings are free or self-sufficient, and its understanding of virtue leaves out an aspect of virtue that might be best called charity, as seen in nursing. This is done not out of external concerns about reputation, but out of genuine charity for others. This is part of virtue too. Another part of virtue not exactly seen in American life, as the trial of Charlie Corker shows. Charlie is educated to Stoicism later on, as we shall see, and becomes, in a strange way, an evangelist for Stoicism. But what kind of a Stoic is that? Again, the answer is a remarkably Christian Stoic, And that is what America is not in Wolfe's view.